Hello, and thank you for joining us for this podcast presented by the Cuyahoga East Chamber of Commerce. My name is Ben Holbert, and I'm pleased to be your host today. Joining me for our discussion on resources for business growth is Jared Daly, and Jared serves as the Executive Director of Employment Collaborative of Cuyahoga County. So welcome, Jared. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. So I help lead a group of 60 different organizations, so different nonprofits, school districts, government entities that are all working to help job seekers with disabilities and barriers to employment find jobs in the community.
Okay, is this sort of like a employment firm or a staff recruiting firm?
Yeah, it can mimic a little bit of a recruiting firm. So we help a lot of businesses find talent with our partners. But the only thing that's a little bit different is we don't charge businesses anything for our services. So we help them with the recruiting, the onboarding, the training, the retention of employees. But there's no fees from the employment perspective. Our goal is to just help them be a more inclusive employer, which is ultimately going to lead to more people that we support getting jobs.
A lot of outreach goes into this, I would assume. You have to get the message out, get the word out. Do you guys engage in a lot of that?
Yeah, so my day job is at the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. We have a team that does workforce development. So they're out there every day knocking on doors, talking to businesses about the advantages of hiring people with disabilities and barriers.
Okay.
And then once the businesses say, yeah, this sounds great, I need people, I need good people, we kind of go to work helping them and trying to find that right candidate and get it set up.
Okay, so a person who may have a disability, okay, they may, if you will, have a lack of skill in one area. But what you all have found, if I'm correct in this, but you found that they have other resources and other abilities that sometimes can really be beneficial to a business.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on. Just like everybody, we have strengths, weaknesses. I think we all kind of look for jobs that play to our strengths and mitigate our weaknesses. People with disabilities are similar, right? They have things they're really good at and maybe things that they need some help with. So it's really about matching. And I think the value of the employment collaborative is we have so many partners, so many staff, and so many job seekers is when we talk with a business and figure out what they need, we can really hone in on what type of individual would be a really good fit. And so when we start with kind of a better fit, it makes it a little bit easier to transition that person as an employee and get them set up for success.
Okay, Cuyahoga County is a pretty big county. I mean, 1.4 million people, I believe. But you stretch the whole geographical area of Cuyahoga with resources, am I correct?
Yeah. So we have our 6 staff. They're assigned different pockets of the county to serve the businesses so that they can be there as much as that company would want us to check in weekly, monthly, whatever it may be. And then our nonprofits, sometimes Cleveland gets made fun of a little bit that we have a lot of nonprofits. We work with every school district. We work with different nonprofits that serve even beyond Cuyahoga County. But the idea is to try to get as many partners so that we have the vast amount of job seekers possible to help make that match and that connection work.
And when we're talking about connections and partnerships, and what kind of jobs are we talking about here? I used to operate a restaurant, and I would love to have had someone to be able to come in and we partner. So tell me the kind of work that you all get people engaged in.
Yeah, we try to bring a really diverse portfolio of opportunities to the people we're serving. But restaurants is a big one, working in the back there, washing dishes, prep cooking, hostess, things like that. We work with a lot of retailers. Home Depot is a big partner of ours that we work with the stocking and the greeting and cashiering. All the major hospitals and some of that patient transport, environmental services, cleaning companies, hotels. And then we also have some higher level positions where we work with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and their e-commerce department. We work with the Guardians, the Browns, different offices and office clerical, data entry, really run the spectrum there. I'd say our sweet spot, people with disabilities tend to have high school education. So some of those entry-level positions, they get their foot in the door and then kind of advance through the positions as they go.
And I know they're pretty excited when they get that call that they've got a job.
Yeah, I think what we hear most from employers in some of those positions would tend to be high turnover. When you run that restaurant, right, like you've got somebody coming in, they come in for a couple weeks or they don't show up as much. We've seen for a lot of the people that we serve and a lot of the connections we make, They show up every day, they work there a really long time, and they're really productive. So for a company, we really try to make it not sound like a charity case. It really is a smart business choice.
Yes,
because
sir.
who doesn't want an employee that shows up every day, works hard, and is going to stay there for a while? I mean, that's the dream, right, as an employer?
Exactly. And you provoke another question here. When we watch the news at night, we'll hear that the unemployment rate has either gone up or restaurants or other industries like that are having a difficult time finding employees. If that be the case, they should pick up the phone and give you guys a call. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually kind of refer to the population we serve as the untapped workforce.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stats on kind of the general population, people without disabilities. A high percentage of them already employed. About 75% of people without disabilities have jobs.
Okay.
When you add a disability, it's only about 33%, right? So there's a lot more people with disabilities that don't have jobs and really want jobs. So if you're kind of going through your normal recruiting process and saying no one's applying, where is everyone? Well, the people without disabilities are probably already working and not looking. So if you want to tap into another pool that's really deep, and really a lot of people haven't to, it's a really good advantage. And I think some of our employer partners might not love that I'm on here because they go, I want these candidates keeping to come me. I found this valuable resource.
Yes.
I don't want to share the wealth. But I'm kidding. They're really excited to actually tell other businesses about how valuable it's been for them. And they're probably our biggest promoters. They tell other companies about how good it's been for them and how great a candidates they found.
Can you take us through the onboarding process? So you get the phone call from one client and now you match them with another client. Tell us how this works.
Yeah, it's very individual basis. So a lot of times a business will call us up and say, hey, we've got some openings. We'd love to consider candidates that you're serving. And it really is all about learning as much as possible about that company. We love to go out and tour the company, see the jobs, see the openings, so we can learn as much as possible, ask as many questions as we can. What are the hours? What are the schedules? What are the job duties? What type of people have done well here? What type of people haven't done well here? So the more we can learn about the position, the more information we have to better match. So once we go out, maybe tour, learn about the roles, ask questions. Can a full-time job be split into 2 part-time jobs? Things like that.
Job
Give some
sharing.
unique perspective and some ideas. Then we go to work on the back end. We start letting all of our nonprofit and partners know, connected with this awesome company, here's where they're located, here's what they're looking for, tell us who you've got. And so then we'll start to recruit the candidates for them. If we find a handful, we'll come back to that business and let them look through the candidates. And it's really onto their onboarding and hiring process. We don't make them sign a contract. We don't make them commit to anything. We just bring them some candidates we think could be a good fit. And let them decide if they want to interview all of them, a couple of them, none of them, and then really help through the process and even setting up the interviews, sitting in with the company on the interviews. What questions should I ask? What questions shouldn't I ask? And then if they're lucky enough to find the candidate they want to hire, we support in that onboarding and training, and sometimes even have job coaches come along with that individual and help for those first couple weeks, first couple months, making sure the person gets solidified in what they're doing and ends up being a productive long-term employee for them.
It sounds to me that you also work with soft skills as well, because a person has got to be able to interact with customers or whatnot. So you work with that too.
Yeah, it all depends on the position, right? I think a lot of people, the soft skills are some of the most important in the job, right? You can get away with a little bit of the productivity, but if your coworkers love you and the customers love you, you're going to be around for a company at a long time. So we work with individuals prior to help them on some of those skills, and then even on site, some of the training on how to greet customers and how to interact with them. So it's an ongoing process, and we work with everyone from the managers and the supervisors to the new employee themselves.
Wow. Now, you sit in the C-suite because you're the executive director, but I'm sure that you have got to, of some stories that warm your heart, that just make you sit back and say, boy, I'm in the right profession and I'm doing good stuff.
Yeah, I'm still out there a lot. I do like to get out there and talk with businesses and work with people. I actually was what they call a job developer, so I was helping individuals find positions directly. And that's kind of when I saw a lot of the great stories. And I love just any individuals that really make it and find a career and a livelihood. We were talking before about a young man that was kind of on Social Security and was living at home with his grandmother, and now he's working at Metro Health in the dietary department. He's been there for 8 years. He's part of the public pension system, so he's going to have a retirement. He's going to be able to afford to live on his own and independently. And so we're just talking about someone who now is able to live in the community, go to events in the community, all because he starts with that foundation of a job. So that I always just love stories of that, when people really find that full-time career and are able to be independent and fully included in where they're living and in their community.
And they get that paycheck, and it's got to give them a sense of worth and value and just excitement. And like I say, I'm sure that you and people that work with you have tremendous stories about situations like that.
Yeah, we've really been thinking a lot. And me in particular, I've been working since I was 15 years old, and sometimes we think of our jobs as somewhat a burden, right? Like, I'm a golfer. I wish I could golf more if I didn't work, or if so I'd spend more time with my family, and trying to recognize that comes from like a point of privilege, right? It's a privilege to be able to work, and that income we get from work grants us the access to own a home, have a family, do those activities. And I think if you're a population, and people with disabilities is one that has historically been excluded from work, you see the privilege that it is to have a job, and then what that affords you after that ability to live, to play, to go to school and get educated in your community in advance. And so I think some people may be out there, and I fall into it, right? You think of your job as like, man, this is tough. But if you haven't had a job or haven't had the opportunity, you forget the honor it is sometimes to work and bring in a paycheck and provide for your family. And I think individuals with disabilities see that on that first paycheck, or when they rent their first apartment, or even buy their first home with some of the jobs that they're getting.
And that's outstanding. Now, one of the other questions somebody in the audience may be saying, well, how do they get to work? Are there partnerships in order with, public transit or anything like that for somebody who may not be able to drive at this point, but how do they get back and forth to work?
Yeah, all of our partners have so many different resources, and that's what's great about the collaboration. We have different organizations. Sometimes we love to use the typical modes of transportation. So if the RTA gets to and from the company, we'll train people on how to take that route. Sometimes we use Lyft and Uber and ride sharing. Sometimes we set up transportation for them so that they can get there. But we always try to look at the most inclusive option and see if they can kind of take the typical modes of transportation that other people. But we're working, and part of our collaboration too is when we find a business, one of our first questions is, how do a lot of staff get here? If they're on an RTA bus line, that makes it really easy. If they're not, then we start to find candidates that are going to have the accessibility and the transportation to get to that certain location.
This is exciting. I mean, I know for those people who are watching us, that they have a need and they would like to find out more. What should they do if they want to partner with you all?
Yeah, the easiest thing is employmentcollaborative.com. It's going to have a lot of the information of who we support, our partners, and there's a contact form in there, and it takes about 15, 20 seconds. Here's my name, here's my email. I'd be interested in learning more. And that's when we're going to dispatch one of our workforce development coordinators to come out and learn as much as possible about your needs, and then go to work on trying to find you a candidate. So it's all free for the business.
That's really
sometimes there's tax credits for the people that you hire. And then you find a great employee that may be a long-standing member. So the return on investment for no cost, the potential to get a couple applicants and maybe an employee that can fill a role that you need is really a no-brainer, I think, for a lot of employers out there.
That's outstanding. And again, we talked earlier about, there's opportunities in hospitality, there's opportunities in hospitals, and there's opportunities in restaurants. But is there anything else that I didn't share or we didn't talk about that you think you want to touch upon?
We will try anything. So one of our exciting ones, we have somebody working for the city of Cleveland in waste management, right? So we have a trash collector, and we have people that work all over the place in gyms, sports teams, hotels.
Gosh.
I mean, there's really no business that we won't talk with. And really the idea is outreach to us, and we want to have that conversation about some of the positions. We've been creative of, hey, you have this position here that you need filled, we can help that. Have you ever thought about creating a job that made other people more efficient, right? So we could take some jobs away from your other staff that help them be a little bit more productive. So we work with manufacturers, CNC machiners, A to Z. If you've got some openings,
Okay.
it's just a phone call and we can kind of discuss if maybe we're the right fit for you. We don't get paid any extra to work with you, so if we
Okay.
don't think we're going to be the right fit or help you find candidates, we're pretty upfront with that,
Okay.
as well as it's no cost to the companies. So if they do want us to post their positions and we're not able to find a qualified candidate, it's really no cost or effort on their end. And we work with people indefinitely. So maybe you reach out to us and we don't have a candidate today. 2 years down the road, somebody might come to us that has the means. And right now, like we're working with a welder out in Solon, right? So that's something we don't normally fill, but now we can kind of go back to our companies that needed that in the past and go, now we might have a really good candidate for you. Are you still interested in meeting with them? So it's really no risk for the employer, and it's all reward from them.
All upside. And just because a person has a disability does not mean they're disabled. They have an opportunity to contribute.
I love it. I got to steal that from you. Okay, I might. Take
No
that
trademark,
one.
sir.
Yeah,
I don't have a trademark. It's yours.
Yeah, we really try to talk to businesses about this is a business case.
Yes, sir.
We're not asking you to lower standards of what you're looking for. We're not asking you to change your processes, your procedures. We want people with disabilities to live up to your standards and expectations, and we're going to help them meet that. We're never going to ask you to lower those standards and those expectations, and that's kind of one of the things that's really important for me to tell companies. Like, we're going to find you someone that can get the job done, and we're going to help them get there. We're not going to ask you to kind of pull back on what you're looking for.
Jared, I've had a great time. I've learned a lot from you about this program. Continued success to everybody working with it. And, sometimes as old reporters, we ask a lot of questions, but there may be something that you want to add that I did not ask you, or you want to just make sure that people know how to get in touch with you again.
Yeah, I think you asked all the really good questions. One of the other maybe selling points or advice for businesses is people are really valuing inclusion and diversity and equity nowadays. So if you want to access a different customer base, it's really important to have your employee base represent your community. So Cleveland has a high population of people with disabilities. We're actually the #1 city in America in percentage of people with disabilities. So if you want people with disabilities to come to your restaurant, to come to your gym, to come to your hotel, it's going to be valuable to you for those individual customers to see themselves represented in your employee base. So think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and how people with disabilities add to that. We think about that with maybe race and gender and ethnicity, but disability is sometimes a forgotten population in that diversity things. And all races and genders have individuals with disabilities, so it's very intersectional. So I like to just kind of bring that up in the general diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations for companies. And we know the value of being a more diverse company and what it offers you. So that would be the only little parting words I have.
And I'm sure that just if someone hires one of your clients, they'll have that warm and fuzzy feel just like you do every day.
Yeah, it really does. We see a lot of mood lifted from the employee base and things like that. It really can help build the culture, both internally and then externally. When your customers get there, they'll come up to a lot of managers and go, "We really appreciate this," or "It's awesome you did this. So-and-so was great serving me, and keep it up. We'll be back here again."
Outstanding. Thank you, Jared Daly, for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. Thank you for the knowledge and the information, and continued success to you guys.